Hello, YouTube vintage electronic collectors. What you're looking at here is a Harmony guitar amp, musical instrument amp. It's a model H303C. C stands for Canadian. This is the most desired model of this one because it may have the 12AU6, the 35W4, and the 50C5 series heater tubes, but it has a proper isolation transformer. I don't do many guitar amps anymore. I find there's not a lot of money in repairing and restoring them, but I picked this one up at an antique market. It was in just such nice condition. The grill is so nice, the covering is so nice, even the handle is perfectly solid. Clean chassis, original tubes, all original components. Now, some audio went through it. There's a little bit of distortion, not the kind you want. There's also some hum. The electrolytic capacitor was dried out, and you cannot reform these. Putting it on a variac does nothing. Believe me, I've been doing this a long time. Anyway, you replace it. I put in a terminal strip. I will put these MEIC ones. I happen to have some 450 and 350 volt ones. But I actually didn't want to talk to you about this specific amp because I've done these before. I wanted to talk to you about mid-century electronics. So I'm talking about the electronics roughly 50s and 60s, the end of the tube era, and we can go as far as to about 1970. That's not really mid-century. Jet age electronics, and I'm talking about appreciating good old-fashioned analog electronics. And this is the kind of stuff I used to pick these up out of the garbage when I was a kid in the 70s. I'd be riding home on my bike from school, and in our neighborhood the garbage truck came at about 4 in the afternoon. So I see what people had out, and they had tube TVs, old record players, even old Victrolas, all kinds of stuff like that. But even some of these were starting to be throwaways that were about 10, 15 years old. They'd quit. It was cheaper to buy another one out of the Sears catalog. But what's neat about these is it was usually a very small problem to fix. So here's my point, okay? This thing here has a date stamp of May 15th, 1961 inside of it. This was all original parts, all original tubes, and it still worked. I mean, it's over 50 years old. Okay, it's as old as me. It really, and this wasn't even a high-end piece. This is very basically constructed, as few components as possible. The reason I'm changing capacitors and resistors, the capacitors dry out, but these resistors, this 180 ohm resistor was around 230 ohms. This was a 2.1 meg resistor. It was over 3 meg. These ceramic capacitors, they don't sound that great. So any of the resistors that handle power, and I'm going to replace this wax capacitor, but the thing still worked. This stuff has the longevity. It is repairable with generic components, and it works amazingly well. And it's like this, okay? This is a little off from my usual stuff. This is my cell phone. It's a flip phone. It's from 2011. And you know, and I'll be standing somewhere and I'll be returning a text. It just does phone and text and has a horrible little camera. And people say, oh, you've got one of those old flip phones. I had one of those years ago. And I'll say, how many phones have you been through and this one is still going? And they'll say, I don't know, I've had 2 iPhones and I had an Android phone and now I'm on to a Samsung Galaxy something. And I'll say, well, considering our throwaway society and how toxic lithium batteries are, I mean, are you better off to keep one for a number of years and keep it out of the landfill? Most of these flip phones did not fail. They just became a little bit obsolete because they didn't have the latest features. And that's sort of like this, you know. At the time, everybody was, well, I'll throw this one out. It's tubes. The new one's solid state. Solid state was good, so were tube amps. And I'm finding, and this is what I find so interesting, all original parts. I just did a Kenwood integrated amp, a KA 2002 from 1972. All original parts, all original transistors. It still worked. It was a little bit noisy, the controls were gritty, the phono stage was squealing in one channel, but it's 50 years old, okay? None of these digital electronics that we're buying now, none of the appliances are going to survive like this stuff. People have a different attitude towards it, it gets thrown out, but even then, it's thrown out because it's largely junk. And that's why I find I'm going to put this together, finish it off, it's going to work well. It's going to be somebody in their 20s that buys this that wants this sound for their guitar. And they'll put a mic on this small amp through a bigger system and use it with their band. And I find it's the same thing. Millennials are buying my stuff. Word has gone around that this stuff lasts and it has value, and you can actually buy it and resell it down the road. The value doesn't totally, you buy something new now. There's lots of new tube amps coming out that are reproductions. You buy them, you pay $2,000. One of my friends bought one for $2,000. Went to resell it, had to give it away at $450. It was a year and a half old. This stuff holds its value, and especially if you spend a little bit of money on restoring it. Anyway, I just thought I'd talk to you about mid-century modern electronics. Thanks for watching and listening.